Exactly. Two northern engineers, from up north in the cold Sweden. Okay, so let's kick it on. Welcome to the Hard Things About IP, where we dive into the world of intellectual property and the hard things about it with experts from various industries. Today, I am joined by Jonas Hagman, an experienced IP professional and European patent attorney, who will actually share his insights into his journey, challenges, and thoughts on the future of IP. So let's jump right in.
Thank you. Lovely to be here, Dimitris.
No, thank you so much for actually participating on this. I believe your knowledge is so valuable for our audience here.
Yeah, I think it's great that we have. I think we need more IP-focused podcasts, right?
Indeed.
It is a challenging area, and I've been working with this for over 15 years. And every day there are new challenges and new situations where you don't really know what to do. And I think that's one why also the name of the podcast is so good. The hard things about IP. What's not hard about IP? Well, we'll see if we can find anything during these discussions today.
True. So to start, could you briefly introduce yourself? I mean, who you are, where you are from, and your current role. And also, of course, out of curiosity, at what age did you start to work with IP?
Yeah. Well, I'm father of 3 kids, between 8 and 10 years old. So that keeps me busy a lot of the time. Living in Gothenburg and working with IP in my own firm called IP Studying. Coming from IP Studying from now you get a whole story here, but IP Studying comes from homesteading. If you know, in US there was a Homesteading Act, I think that was back in the hundreds years ago or something, to get people moving out on the countryside, getting their own farm, being more or less self-sufficient in food and probably weaving their own clothes and so on. And I have a vision that companies need to be more self-sufficient in IP, not in the sense of drafting and prosecuting their own patent applications and trademarks or other registered rights, because there they need their experts with a deep knowledge of the IP system and having the support systems to do all the administration in an efficient way, but in the sense of knowing and understanding the role of IP in their organizations. And somewhere there I totally forgot what the question was, but that's what my vision of IP Studying and change I'm trying to drive for smaller companies and startups.
So you're then supporting, I would say, companies, everything related to IP, everything from, idea to commercialization, or what are you exactly doing?
So when I started my company, I had the vision to do this to more, we say, what the hard things about IP, but also to address what's not so hard, or address the complexity in terms of, or rather address the problem that IP is handled as a specialized interest for the few interested, to make it more graspable, more comprehensible for everybody in a company, and to make it part of the culture, especially in tech-intensive companies. That's crucial, because it's not about the single applications, it's about the iceberg that is keeping those IPRs afloat, right? I think we come more to that. So I started with some services that I called IP Manager as a Service, where I take the role as the IP manager at these companies on a part-time and handle all their processes, understanding the business and working with their IP in-house and handling all the discussions with the external advisors. So by being there and being their representative on the inside, they increase their IP knowledge from essentially nothing to being having a full experienced patent attorney in-house. And that making the playing field with their external advisors much more even.
Now you make me curious when you said IP manager as a service. Is there a need for such type of services, and what made you create this type of service?
Yeah, from my previous experience as patent attorney in a relative traditional setup, I've seen the need that, or rather, I've seen how that my advantage in an experience and knowledge advantage I have within IP in comparison to the clients when it comes to smaller and mid-sized companies or startups that essentially have no experience of IP is so large that even if I have the best intentions, and that's the same for my colleagues in the same roles today, despite the best of intentions and good advice, the clients go from the meetings with a slightly bad feeling in the stomach because they haven't grasped everything we said. So that's what I wanted to solve, like being in the bridge between these companies not having an in-house IP department and the high qualified IP expertise that they use.
And what was the age when you stepped into the IP world?
That was about 15 years ago, so I was about 30.
Okay.
I did my studies at Chalmers University here in Gothenburg, and did my first, or got my first job as a trainee at CF Friedrichshafen, large German corporation, did supplier to the automotive industry. At that time, was a company that had a good flow, or I don't know how to pronounce it or how to say it, and did the trainee program. After that, we had to apply to the positions that were free open within the company. And I had my mind of getting into development somewhere. Didn't find any interesting positions, but found this at the patent department. And my boss at the trainee program wanted me out of there, obviously, because he paid my salary as long as I didn't get another position within the company. So I applied for this. Haven't never heard of patents before, more or less, more than anyone have. Started to read whatever I could, search on Google, and came to the conclusion, well, this could be interesting. You need to work with, or you're allowed to work with all these new technologies all the time. And the inventors and the development departments, they tell you their latest technology, and you get paid for it. So it sounds interesting.
So was it the curiosity, Jonas, that drove you toward, because that type of role to work with new inventions is not something that I at least heard when I was studying, in the university. Everybody wanted to become consultants, and as you said, maybe R&D engineer, perhaps I wanted to pursue for a PhD. But what sparked your interest to go towards, IP and innovation? Was it the curiosity?
Yeah, well, no, not really. That was the opportunity that I found the most compelling, but among the few that were there. So I can't say that I had, well, this is what I want to do. This is the opportunity that is. So let's try it out. It sounds relatively good. But as it turned out, it was a lucky stroke. Started there and did all my schooling in Germany. Back then, I actually drafted patent application in German. Wouldn't do that today. And eventually, I moved back to Sweden then and started at private practice instead.
So after your trainee, if I understand it correctly, then you pursued for this career, and I assume it was like a patent engineer role?
Exactly, internal patent engineer at CF Friedrichshafen.
And then you pursued also for the European patent attorney title as well, or was it later on?
No, we started already there, doing studies from I think my 6 months there. We did a SIPE course. SIPE is in Strasbourg, and these courses are all over Europe in local communities. And we did it in Zurich. A colleague of mine from CF Friedrichshafen and me, And that was also funny because then it wasn't German as we know it anymore. Then it was Swiss German for a lot of the participants and from the tutors. But well, I managed that as well.
Good, good. Interesting. And just also to understand, I mean, obviously today you work as a consultant, and I can imagine that you are going into different projects depending on, you know, where your clients need you the most. Could you maybe explain to us what a typical week looks like when you are a consultant and working with IP?
Due to my setup and what I'm aiming to build, it probably looks a bit different. But you asked me before if there were a need for this service, IP Manager as a service. That was my first service, together with Senior IP Manager, or a Senior IP Advisor, where I, after more or less half a year, felt that I was fully booked, and I started to say no to new requests or new quotes, because if I took in more clients, I wouldn't have time to develop my own business. So with the aim to have more impact in how IP is handled, I also realized with these clients I have now, which is actually between 4 and 5, depending on how you're counting, and well, I have 5 clients where I'm involved. I realized that's a quite low impact. It's a high impact in these clients, but in general, it's too low. I see there's a need for a change and an increase in IP awareness on a much broader scale. So I was starting to thinking, how can I develop something that have a larger impact? So now I'm building a masterclass directed to startups that will also function for small and medium-sized enterprises, where they can build their IP strategy step by step to the extent they need, and in the same time get the understanding of IP and how they can use IP in their business and to reach their business objectives. It hasn't launched yet, but now we have the context to what do I do, how does a normal week look like for me. So I have divided the weeks to keep, as a consultant, I think every consultant has the same problem in struggling and juggling all these balls and still keeping the right focus on the task you're doing. So I have Monday and Tuesday, I have high focus on my clients and what I should do for them. So I have now I have 4 hours where I work with this client, and I only do tasks related to that client, and so on these 2 days. And on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I have dedicated to developing this masterclass in IP. So there I work on my internal, setting the structure, seeing that I have good examples, working them through, writing the theory, writing the actions, and I will soon start filming. So we have a good video material and tutorial for everything, so the participants in the masterclass actually can take it all the way.
Super interesting. Yeah, and I can also imagine, right? I mean, if you're running your own company, you have to have different hats as well. I mean, on the one hand, you also need to be able to send out the invoices of your services. On the other hand, you need to advertise your services also to the outside. So there are a lot of things. Is it a one-man show you're running, or are you more people behind you?
No, I actually do this together with my wife that isn't from the industry, but especially now she's helping me. She has a background as an accountant. And so she had her own business before me. And when I started, she took over the economic side and the economic system and everything, support system that we need. But now she also managing more or less the whole company and having I'm on paper, I'm the CEO, but she's actually the one having the overview, ensuring that the invoices are sent and giving me the task to do, so we drive it forward. And then I work with partners to actually be able to deliver all the aspects of my clients' needs they need.
Interesting. And I mean, this podcast is called, the hard things about IP for a reason, right? And then and let's be honest, it's not always easy, right? I mean, to be that person that needs to support a company and advising them, on strategic matters. And then, as you said, you have 5 clients that you need to support. And of course, your level of input varies a lot. But what are the biggest challenges that you are faced with when you offer this type of service, because you are like a IP manager, when they want it? What are the biggest 3? If you can name 3, what are they?
Yeah, I think the first one on more a personal level or managing your own work is keeping the focus on, now I'm working with this client. And I think that's a general, when you work with this type of consultancy, that you have a lot of different clients. Now I'm focusing on it and keeping that effective. So you don't mix it up with everything and trying to do it all at once. The second one is, which also I think all IP consultants struggle with, is the insights in the business. So you have sufficient information about the business, because the business is core. IP is part of the business, but is unfortunately still handled a lot in its own silo. So that's the second, and it goes into the third, which is awareness in the organization. Why are we doing this? Why is it important? And how do we actually identify IP relevant intellectual assets efficiently? Because I can't be there every week to say, have you found anything new? Do you have any inventions? Do you have anything of this? We need to train the organization. I think this is the hardest. What the organizations, that is the companies, not the IP companies, but for us, our clients struggle with, is to work with the IP awareness. And that's I think the largest threshold for the companies to get over.
Interesting. And I mean, you touched upon, these 3, I would say, challenges, right? And from your experience, and what are the most common mistakes companies make? And obviously, you don't have to refer now to your existing clients. I mean, you have been working with IP for many, many years. Have you identified some typical pitfalls that companies always do when it comes to handle IP?
Yeah, I think one of the pitfalls is what I'm trying to address with my masterclass, and that is not understanding and not having the awareness of what IP is and what it can do for their business. They know they have a technical innovation. They know they should apply for a patent. They don't know what they should have it for. For what is it there? They apply for it. They think it's expensive. They see it as a cost, and that is because they can't relate it to the future incomes they will have in their business, because they haven't related it to business. They've only related it to their technology. And I think that's the most common, I don't know if we should call it mistake, but that's the most common problem I see, that it's handled, we need a patent and that's it, and we put it in a drawer when it's finally granted, and they don't really know. They know it's important, but that's it. They don't know why it's important. They don't know how they should leverage it to get the most out of their investment in IP.
You also highlighted about that IP is usually in silos. Is that also like another problem that you see in companies?
Definitely. I think it's part of the same problem in that sense, that in small companies, it's not even a silo within the companies. It's all outsourced to somewhere else, to the patent attorney or the trademark attorney and that firm. And they have a meeting in the best of worlds, maybe 4 times a year. And in the best of worlds, they have that regularly, but in many cases, they have it based on that is coming in an office action from the authorities. Hence, IP is driven from an authority perspective to get your right granted, instead of from a business perspective, this is what we want to achieve. And I think we need the authority perspective, since there will be coming office actions, And that can be handled in some kind of separate process. But all the other processes happening inside your organization must be integrated in the processes that already exist in forms of what do we need here in forms of IP? Do we need an identification process? Then that should be included in the development process. Do we need a process to understand? We have an onboarding process. Most companies have that, also the very early ones. What IP matters do we have there? Well, we need some IP awareness schooling. We probably need an NDA, and we need to tell them what you're allowed and not allowed to do, and what are our important IP to build our business, so they can start identifying when they are up and running and working in the company these the new assets they are creating.
And actually, the third thing I would like maybe to get your opinion on is, because you talked about the startup scene, right? And usually startups really depends on finding clients, and maybe they are an integral into a large organization, and maybe they need to collaborate with another larger company out there. What would you consider that these agreements, you talked about very light on the NDA, that's the non-disclosure agreement, obviously, but if you make like an agreement, I mean, a big company knows that they want to own everything that is developed, right? Do you think, and maybe based on your experience working with these companies, are they aware of what they are giving away when they sign off these type of agreements in projects and so on?
Yeah, both yes and no. I think most of them just don't give everything away because they realize they need this. But I think actually from also the larger corporations, these type of collaboration agreements are handled quite, I don't know if I should use the word sloppy, but the potential is, the agreement are potentially good, but they haven't done the pre-work in defining why do we go into this agreement, what do we want to, or cooperation, what do we want to get out of it, and because that's very hard, because that is looking into the future, and everybody that has tried to do that by predicting the market in launching the right product or investing in stocks or whatever it is, or just predicting the weather, it's hard to look into the future, right? But that you need to do. This is what we want to get out of the corporation. And we see this type of IP, or if you can be explicit, this IP will come out. And this IP we want the full right to. You can have a free license, but this IP is not that interesting for us. That you can have, and that should be defined already in the agreement or before it is created, because when it's created and everybody see the great value, well, it's harder to get to an agreement.
Because I mean, as an entrepreneur, I mean that you are also nowadays, I mean, you want to make sure that you get the revenue, inwards your company, right? Do you think that you can get a little bit blind by looking too much on the money and don't spend a little bit more time on the collaboration agreement, or is the experience that companies can handle that?
Yeah, I think everybody, especially entrepreneur building a startup, potentially have future investors that they want to please or show that they have done their homework, or having investors that's giving them a lot of pressure. They have their to-do list grows much faster than they can check things off, right? And so if I'm sound hard, you need to do this and this, I fully understand that they don't do everything, and they can't do everything, right? If you ask me as an IP advisor, you should do this and this and this and this and this. Well, that's true, but then I haven't put myself in their situation. And I think that's why it's important that they have sufficient IP knowledge themselves to assess how important is this agreement, and how important is it, or this cooperation, and how important is the things that getting out of the cooperation. And depending on that, you spend more or less time on drafting the agreement and the pre-work on the agreement to actually address all the specific things.
Interesting. You mentioned that you started off with IP working for ZF, right? And when you joined that group, they had an IP management system in place. I mean, it's an enormous company, right? Yeah. And then You mentioned that you have created a service to support, companies that should buy that service when needed. And you mentioned that they shouldn't just meet 4 times a year and so on and so forth. Based on your experience, if you look into small, medium and large enterprises, when in time should a company consider to invest in their own IP management system so they can handle everything related to IP?
Well, that's a great question that I could say. I have 3 answers. As soon as possible, as late as possible, and it depends.
Sounded very lawyerish answer.
Exactly. I think it happens a lot on the IP management system side right now. And I use a system. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell it here.
I think you should definitely mention it. I don't think you this is your decision, right?
Yeah, I use a system called RightHub, which I like because it's in the cloud and it's set up so I can invite my clients. They have a dashboard, they can see the timelines, and it's with colors. Now it's urgent, now it's not. So they can easily click in and see. Most of my clients, they're not interested. I think that's for clients having portfolios up to 10 applications, and in startup community, they want somebody to solve it. So they don't log in, they can do. But the really fine part, I think, is if they get tired of me, we want to do this ourselves or use other attorneys, they can just move their portfolio or just lock me out from the system. So they own the portfolio in the same system. And I hope to, in the sense of making the choice of attorney and IP firm that the clients work with, that these type of systems get more common. That when you go to an IP firm, they can actually also provide, well, for this case, I want to work with you, but I know this special technology, I know this attorney, I would love that he would work in, or she works with that, and she can dock in to the same system. That is provided by me as their main attorney, but this is service to the client. So they don't need to buy that system by themselves.
Interesting. And of course, another topic that I believe is of interest when we talk about the hard things about IP, how can companies benefit from monitoring what their competition is doing? This curiosity, you go to exhibitions, you look at what they're doing, you try to follow the LinkedIn pages, all the announcements. How could monitoring of patents be of interest for companies?
I would say I have, for all the clients where I am IP manager, I have monitorings, because I think it's somehow crucial in the form of awareness. If you only work with your own portfolio, you think you get a very limited view. And I think it's important to start with the competitors, those that are on the same market, has the same or the most similar products, to understand what they do. Both in terms which markets are they directing, which type of technology are they protecting, but also, and then it comes to the second, to avoid infringing their patents. Because if somebody will be aggressive towards you when you accidentally infringe a patent, it will be the one that's trying to get the same market share, right? The farther away the owner of a patent is from your market, the more likely it's that it will be a friendly negotiation. The more close they are in competing on the same market share, the more likely it will be a very tough and aggressive negotiation, or potentially even court proceedings. So that is understanding, avoiding, and then third is, I think, learning. And I think the third one is I think it's in that order, because that's the order it's easiest to grasp when you start working with these. And learning, I think it's the hardest one, because that means you need to get a lot of people actually reading the documents and analyzing them and understanding, and that takes time.
Interesting. Talking about studies, the European Patent Office, in their annual report, they mentioned that companies with strong IP strategies tends to outperform those without, right? Do you think that?
If I may call you on that, do they say that, or that's not what they investigated, but I think that's their conclusion.
The
Right?
conclusion is that exactly
because
that.
They say companies with registered IPR, like patents and trademarks, has these benefits.
Yeah, higher salaries, more more competitive, and so on, and
more revenue per.
Yeah. Do you agree on that based on your experience?
Yeah. Well, from a statistical perspective, I can't really say that it's not true, because they have done their investigation. These are the companies. These have registered patents and trademarks, and then they have compared the numbers. So I can't really disagree on that. And then the conclusion, I agree on that as well. It's not necessarily the registered asset as such, but to be able to continuously file relevant patent applications and have a portfolio of relevant trademarks, you need to have the structure, the understanding, and processes to handle these things. And that we were touching that beforehand or earlier here. That means the IPR, it's what the patent offices can measure. What's happening behind that, they don't know, they don't see, but they are the indicator, they are the tip of the iceberg, they are the 10% that they can see, and the rest are actually that one keeps it afloat and makes it valuable. And it's easier to draw the fast conclusions from these when you see the numbers. I have used them too, and I think they're good to flag up. Look, here's something. We have 32% higher revenue per employee if you have filed IPR. And I think everybody thinks, well, that can't be true. Well, it is true from a statistical point of view, but there are other things behind that that makes it true, so to say.
True, very true. I mean, in the end of the day, if you have a lot of IP and you don't have a revenue streamline inwards and you can't sell your product, most probably it wouldn't be true, right?
It won't be a very high salary for those persons. No, it's all about the business. IP, as everything else, it's all about a solid business, and then IP can support that and help you. But IP as such won't bring you there as long as it's not building a licensing business, but still you have to have a proof of concept or something to back that up.
If we continue down this path, I mean, the IP scene has changed a lot since you and I became IP, experts or advisors, whatever profession you may decide, and especially now with this digital transformation and artificial intelligence, right? How do you see the role of IP have changed the recent years, first of all, and what trends or shifts have stood out the most to you, Jonas?
I don't know if the role of IP has changed so much, potentially, that it becomes more and more important. You talk about it, everybody, or there are lot more speaking and talking about IP in general. You have definitely seen the graph, probably some of the listeners as well, from Ocean Tomo, where they show the value of a company, and in the 70s, I think it was the 70s, like 28 or say 30% of the company value was intangible assets. The rest were physical assets, like inventory, planes, or what it could be. And now in the 2020, that has flipped totally, and it's only 10% that is inventory, and the rest are intangible assets. And that's include then obviously intellectual assets as patents, technology solutions, processes, and everything. And that means obviously that it has changed a lot. None of us worked in the 70s, but it's been a progress. And now I can hear people, and I've heard people argue for over 10 years that IP has played out its role, or the IP system, but I think it's the other way around. And the argument that it has played out its role is that everything goes so fast and the system is so slow. Like it takes 3 to 5 years to get out a patent. In that time, we have 5 new product cycles out, or 3, or whatever it is. And I think that is a misunderstanding, because then you don't work with IP in a correct way. Then you probably you develop your product and you develop your IP in parallel. And now we have the next product and we have filed our next IP. But your IP should be looking both on the current product that you're developing, but on the next generation, or the second next or third next generation. So you actually be able to build the IP for the future. And then you will have the granted patents and have your portfolio when you put the product on the market.
Speaking about change, AI has become an increasingly important tool for many of us, not just in IP, but in most of the spaces, I would say. How do you think AI will impact your daily work? And if you could design the perfect AI tool for your business, what would it do?
Yeah, I think for me, since I'm so lucky, I started my business in the middle or in the start of the IP or AI revolution within IP. I built a lot of my business based on that this will be, AI will take over a lot of the tasks, or be supporting a lot of the tasks. If you look how you draft a patent application, when I started, it was, we work in Microsoft Word or whatever. But if you look down in the beginning of the 90s, you probably drafted it by hand, or as my boss in Germany actually did, he dictated his things into a dictator, and then somebody else wrote it. And the AI transition is exactly the same. We become more efficient. And when I draft patent application, or when I drafted patent application traditional, I spend about 30% of the time understanding the invention, understanding its role in the business. And then I had pretty good grasp of what I wanted to get out in forms of patent claims and description and supportive text. 70% of the time I spent trying to formulate that in a relevant text. I loved the 30%. I didn't really love the other 70% that much. And that is what AI do today, or what we're going towards. And that has happened fast. It's within a year, more or less, from that it was only a percentage that work with AI to draft a patent application. I would say if you don't do that today, you are in the backseat as a patent attorney. And there are numerous of tools and discussions if you should do it on your own device with everything shut off and nothing sent to the cloud, or if it's cloud service and so on, that will settle over time. But I have built my business on this is how I draft patents. And if you as a client don't believe that this is the right way, I'm not your patent attorney.
Interesting.
So that's because that will make the work more efficient, more cost effective. So I offer all my clients a fixed price. And I work so they know exactly what it costs per month to get from when we start drafting until it's done and they have a grant.
A lot of people in IP, Jonas, including myself for that matter, didn't plan of ending up working within IP. For me, it was becoming an engineer. What do you think can be done to make IP a more established career path for young students studying towards, IP? And how can we make it more visible as a career option?
I think it actually addresses the same question as what can we do to increase the IP awareness in the companies. That needs to be, because when I started, as I said, I know what a patent was in general, in the context everybody else know, but nothing more. And I have been studying at one of the top universities in Sweden, and I was studying product development, which should be quite interesting from a patent perspective to get to know those things. But I can't remember when it was mentioned with a single word in that over those 5 years at Chalmers University. And so I think that's the key to start getting this out also at the technical universities and in the educational system to work with these issues. And that will also get more people with the knowledge that this is a career path that is reachable and exists. Maybe it's the most crucial word that it existed, that it even exists.
Okay. Let's end it on a lighter note. Intellectual property isn't always the front and the center in movies and TV.
Yeah, unfortunately. Would have been great, wouldn't it?
It would have been, right? Can you think of a film or a series where IP played an important role?
I think I have one film, the $1 billion Code. It's on Netflix. I loved it. My wife wasn't interested, but it's good. It's about TerraVision, a German company that did more or less a Google Earth, but before them, and they had some patents. And it's about that fight, how they tried to protect their intellectual property.
Actually, I have watched it as well, and I enjoyed it.
I could have imagine.
And also what I remember is the doner kebab in that movie.
Yeah, okay, I missed that. But
Okay.
I also have, if you're a Swedish listener, you should listen to the not Netflix, I think it's Spotify documentary about, I think that's called the $1 billion patent or something, about Neonode and their patents, where they have patented the touchscreen touchscreen gesture, which is used on, for example, the iPhone, at least the initial versions of the iPhone, when you slide to unlock. That is also very interesting, and I think I have a third one, and it's also for a Swedish audience. I think they're on SVT, a documentary about Håkan Lans. And I think there's also a radio documentary on that one, if you're interested. They're all very interesting to listen to.
And hopefully with the help of AI, maybe they can be translated directly into English or whatever language they would prefer.
Exactly. Just put it into your favorite AI tool, and you have it in English. And I hope this Neonode story, when that settlement, because that is still going on, is done, and everything is clear, that will become a Netflix movie or series as well.
Great, Jonas. Great. Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing your insights and experience on the hard things about IP. And I think still we all realize it's a lot of hard things within our space. That's for sure. It has been a pleasure having you on the podcast. That's it for today.
For being here. Yeah.
That's it for today's episode of The Hard Things About IP. If you enjoyed the discussions, be sure to subscribe for more conversations with IP professionals in the space. More will come. Thanks for listening, and we see you all the next time.